friends. Most people, they don't eat rice because they think it's healthy. They eat it because there's nothing else that feels the same. The texture and the comfort, I know it's addicting. But here's the problem. Rice, especially white rice, it's pretty processed food that has been stripped of vital nutrients, and it becomes rapidly digestible starch that spikes blood sugars. And on top of that, it contains 10 times more arsenic than any other grain. So if you already have a slow metabolism, like prediabetes, fatty liver, or diabetes, then every time you eat white rice, you're getting a quick glucose rise, elevated insulin, and potentially worsening fatty liver and diabetes and gaining weight. But instead of telling you to just give up comfort food, I'm actually going to show you something much more powerful. 10 rice replacements that don't just mimic the experience, but it actually upgrades your metabolism, your gut microbiome, and long-term health. And I'll also show you how to make some of them, what it looks like, their nutritional content, especially their fiber and protein and micronutrients, and explain why they behave differently in your body. By the way, my name is Dr. Liu, and I'm a double board certified medical physician for almost 30 years. And I've developed a unique perspective on longevity, inflammation, and metabolism. And what I've consistently seen is this. People who don't optimize their metabolism and control their inflammation, they don't just get chronic diseases. They also get more infectious diseases that absolutely will worsen any chronic disease and will decrease the quality of life and shorten longevity. So let's start with barley, what I call the metabolic upgrade. 3/4 of a cup of cooked barley, that has 33 grams of carbs and 4 grams of protein. But you can get carbs and protein from many, many foods. What is special about barley is that it has 6 grams of fiber. And you can get fiber from many, many foods. It actually has a key fiber called beta-glucan and micronutrients called magnesium and selenium. Now, barley looks like a grain, but physiologically, it behaves differently. That beta-glucan fiber forms a viscous gel in your intestines, slowing glucose absorption and binding to bile acids. That doesn't happen when you eat rice. So that means you can lower post-meal glucose spikes, reduce cholesterol, because it's binding bile acids, and you basically poop them out. And then the barley fibers, they feed your gut microbiome, which in turn makes short-chain fatty acids like butyrate to then decrease inflammation. This is something rice and white rice cannot do. A food that lowers your glucose, your insulin, your cholesterol, it makes you insulin sensitive, it reduces fatty liver and promotes your immunity, all in one, should be eaten. Number 2 is lentils. This is a glucose buffer. I have here cooked lentils. All I did was cook it in a bowl of water. My friends, they eat this in place of rice. Why would they do that? Well, how about the fact that it has 18 grams of protein? It is still full of carbohydrates, 40 grams. But those 40 grams of carbs isn't just plain starch. A significant portion is resistant starch. And this is where things change dramatically. The combination of fiber, protein, resistant starch, it slows gastric emptying. It blunts your glucose rise. It reduces the insulin demand. So instead of spiking and crashing, you get a controlled metabolic response. And this is why populations that eat legumes regularly have lower rates of diabetes and cardiovascular disease. This is simply a glucose buffer, a visceral fat exterminator. And if you want to cure your type 2 diabetes and get longevity food, well, you got to eat beans and lentils. They are a must-eat daily. Let me put this back. But I understand it may not look as great and it doesn't look like rice and may not satisfy your taste buds. If texture is what you want, well, you can transform lentils into so many different types of foods. Take right here. I have here a wrap. I made this out of these lentils. All I did was soak the lentils overnight. I poured out the water, filled it up with new water that's at the level of the lentils. I blended it all together and then I heated it up in a small skillet like a pancake. I did put a little bit of oil so it wouldn't stick. And now you can use it as a wrap like a tortilla, or you can season this with spices to get a flavorful wrap and eat it as a snack. It's great plain, or it can hold other stuff in it, right? Like a sandwich wrap. But I know that this still may not replace the loose starchy texture that you like with white rice. So if you're craving that texture, how about trying some quinoa? Quinoa is full of structural proteins and minerals. 3/4 cup of cooked quinoas has 6 grams of protein. It still has 30 grams of carbs, so you get that carb feel. It's kind of loose like rice, and you get that texture, but this is nutritionally superior. This is probably the closest you're gonna get with a single grain. And quinoa is often marketed as a complete protein, but honestly, all these are complete protein. It just has a better balance of essential proteins that we expect. The real advantage of quinoa is actually in its mineral density. It's full of magnesium and iron, and of course, it has all your essential amino acids. But like I said, every plant has all the essential amino acids. The proportions, though, of quinoa is more what we expect in a whole food. And also, don't forget that this has 3 grams of fiber. And the reason why I prefer these grains over rice is because of the micronutrient density. Magnesium plays a direct role in insulin signaling, muscle relaxation, vascular tone. So you're not just replacing rice, you're correcting a deficiency most people don't even realize that they have. But honestly, you can get even closer to rice texture if you mix it with another grain, which I'll share with you later on. And I know some of you really are unable to tolerate grains because your metabolism is just way too slow and your sugars will spike, your insulin will go up, and you're looking for a low glycemic substitution. Well, I have a great idea for you. Have you tried Bulgur? That is a fiber-dense grain with a low glycemic index. 3/4 of a cup of cooked bulgur has 8 grams of fiber. The carbs is 34 grams. And remember, some of that is resistant starch and also has 5 grams of protein. It is one of the highest fiber grains that you can get. High fiber is what I look for because the more fiber you get, then the more gut fermentation you get, the more short-chain fatty acids you get, the better your colonic health, your metabolic signaling, the lower your blood sugars and insulin. And truly, I really don't understand why white rice is really the only grain most people eat because there's a ton of other grains. But I know in some countries that they may not have an option. But wheat is probably only heard of in bread, right? And the thing is, wheat comes from a grain. Have you ever eaten the wheat berry? One type of wheat berry is farro. 3/4 cup of cooked farro has 5 grams of fiber, 34 grams of carb, 6 grams of protein. It's full of zinc, iron, B vitamins. This will give you a chewier texture because of the fiber, which, remember, that whole thing also has protein. It slows down digestion. It improves satiety. Just a quick note before we continue. I see messages and comments all the time from people who have watched a few of my videos and didn't realize that they weren't subscribed. So if you find value in my videos, can you click the like button and double check that you are subscribed? It's free and it really does help get my message to other people. And if you are subscribed, thank you very much for joining me to change the world. Number 6 is buckwheat. 3/4 cup of cooked buckwheat has fiber, 4 to 5 grams, carbohydrates, 30 grams, protein, 6 grams. They are full of polyphenols, magnesium. It supports your vascular health. These are things that rice simply cannot do. So all these grains actually can give you better gut support. And you may be wondering, what exactly are in these bowls, right? So this one I mentioned is buckwheat. It's actually white. Look how viscous this could be. So this is actually, I cooked this earlier, but it comes out sticky. Now buckwheat, even though it has the word wheat in it, is actually a gluten-free grain. That's why when you go to the store to buy buckwheat, it says gluten-free. So this is buckwheat. This right here is oats. And oats have ton of beta-glucan fibers that help to reduce your blood sugars, reduce your insulin spikes, as well as help you lower your cholesterol. So this is a heart-healthy food. I didn't cook just simple oats. These are oat groats. And again, this is viscous. It gets sticky and starchy. So if you mix your oats with some quinoa, you actually get a texture that is closer to rice than quinoa alone. Some people don't like oats because it has that slimy or smooth texture. But, if you go buy oat groats as opposed to rolled oats, you'll get a finer or a more coarser texture that tastes more like rice. And I have here steel cut oats. When you cook it down, it looks like what rice would look like if it's stuck in a bowl, right? So this is steel cut oats. Now this right here is another form of grain that has a gel-like texture. So instead of rice, you can use oat bran, right? It comes out kind of a mochi-like texture. This is so much more nutritious. So oat bran is the outside of oat groats. Oat groats are basically the oat grain itself. And when you just strip the outside of it, you get oat bran. So when it solidifies, it has a very sticky, texture, like bouncy, like mochi. And this is a substitute that you can use instead of eating sweet rice or making sweet rice flour. You can use a grain that will stick together just like rice. And you get more nutrition and yet still preserve some of that texture. Now, let's look for different textures in different parts of the plant, like roots. Ever try sweet potato? If you cube it or mash it, if you bake it or boil it, it gets soft. 1 cup of a sweet potato has 4 grams of fiber, 27 grams of carbs, 2 grams of proteins. But the key is the orange color of it. It has full of beta carotene. It also has a lot of potassium. It adds antioxidant power instead of rice, which doesn't have that. Now, the next one is cauliflower. 1 to 2 cups of cauliflower has 3 to 5 grams of fiber, 5 grams of carbs, and 2 grams of protein. It contains sulforaphane, vitamin C. It's actually your best bet if you want a low carb, low insulin spiking food. Or you can go to chickpeas. 1 cup of chickpeas has 12 grams of fiber, 45 grams of carbs. Much of that is resistant starch, 14 grams of protein. You can't beat that. The key nutrients are iron, folate, resistant starch. It's great for feeling full. It's great for your microbiome. It is a wonderful protein substitute. And it's so quick and easy to make. All these grains have a different texture and taste, and when you combine them together, you simply will get much more nutrient density than just eating white or even brown rice, right? There's so much more benefit to expanding your nutrient density. Any food that is low in fiber, that leads to rapid glucose spikes with very minimal micronutrients, honestly is really not worth eating. And this would describe most ultra-processed foods. It's not just rice. But rice just so happens to be an important staple throughout the world, so I don't want to villainize it because I do understand many people depend on it. So how can we upgrade the nutrition of rice so that you can get fiber and protein and micronutrients that you won't get with just white rice? Well, here are some simple things that you can do. You can actually eat the rice with your beans. You can actually sprinkle some high protein products like flaxseed. It has high in protein, high omega-3s. So you simply just sprinkle it on before you eat. You can also sprinkle on something like almond meal. You can grind nuts, different kinds of nuts, and you can sprinkle that on. Another thing that I like to sprinkle on is wheat germ. Wheat germ is not only high in protein, but it also contains a longevity molecule named spermidine. So this is the stuff that we take out of wheat flour. The whole wheat berry, we actually convert it into something that's just pure starch when we make our white breads. And that's why it's important not to eat white colored grains because you're literally getting what you eat. And these are just some of the nutritious ways in which you can upgrade your white rice if you have to eat white rice. But honestly, there's so many other grains to try. Hi friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now. So this is what you can do with some of your grains. So this is a dish that I make. I cut this up in cubes and I eat it. This is delicious. And the reason why I cut them up in cubes because I kind of like the chewiness, like a mochi-like taste. So I stopped eating rice and I'm looking for substitutes for rice. That's why I have been using other grains that are a little bit stickier or has that sticky texture, but is much healthier than rice. And I mentioned buckwheat. You know, my whole point isn't just to eat the texture. I want to actually eat nutrition. So when I cook grains like buckwheat or oats, what I'll do is I'll make it flavorful with a bunch of different spices and fruits to really get my nutritional content in as well as make the food tasty. So in a pot of water, you can get some cinnamon sticks. Make sure they are Ceylon cinnamon. And you can tell Ceylon cinnamon because the cinnamon is pretty fragile. It's not thick. You don't want to get cassia cinnamon. That's fake cinnamon. And that actually has a toxin in it. So I buy this from Melissa. It's just, I go to the local supermarket and I've noticed that they actually have Ceylon cinnamon sticks. And to that water, I'll put cinnamon sticks. I'm gonna sweeten it up. So you can put any dates that you want. Sometimes I'll put medjool dates. Sometimes I'll buy specialty dates. It could be as hard as you want them to be. It could be pitted or unpitted, because what you're gonna do is boil the water, take the dates out, and then pit them. And the reason why you wanna do that is because I fragrance my water with jujube dates. Now, jujube has an extra fragrant that is not in these typical dates. These dates are just sweet, so they add the sugar, but jujube adds a fragrance. So let me show you what this looks like. This is what a jujube looks like. It is a pretty big date. When it's fresh, it tastes kind of like an old apple, but it's not as soggy as an old apple, you know, like that milly taste. It's not milly, but it has that kind of that chew. So you can eat this raw, but I usually use it to fragrant my water before I boil my dates. It's a dessert. It's a traditional Chinese dessert. And jujubes have such good health properties that I, will generally try to eat jujube dates at least once a week. So inside is a seed, and it's pretty hard to take that out because this is very, it's dried up. So I will just put it in the pot of water and let it boil until it's softened, and then I can take the seed out. Okay, you don't want to eat the seed because it's super hard. You can crack your teeth. And depending on how sweet you like it, in a pot of water like this, so this pot of water is about 8 cups. I'll usually fill it up to halfway, 4 cups. In 4 cups of water, I'll probably add like 6 jujube dates, a cinnamon stick, and then I'll add, depending on who I'm serving it to, I may add a comparable 8 dates, or sometimes that's too sweet. You can decrease it, not sweet enough, you can increase it. And you'll know after the water is boiled. So after the water is boiled, now I put this leaf called the pandan leaf. I forgot to get it. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, I keep my pandan in the freezer. It is basically, it looks like almost like lemongrass. It's a big giant leaf or a miniature banana leaf. And I wash it and I will throw it in and boil it with it too. I know a lot of Vietnamese people and my friends tell me to use it like vanilla. It has that fragrance. The way they make pandan leaf desserts is different. They actually, I think they juice it and then they use the entire juice. But, I don't want to pull out my juicer, so I'm doing the lazy man's way. And it adds a very nice fragrance without having to add any like artificial ingredients or having this aftertaste of grains. Sometimes if you don't add flavor to grains, it has this aftertaste. And if you've eaten a lot of grains, you know what I'm talking about. So after I've made my water, so I've put my dates, my medjool dates, whatever spices you want to put, like cinnamon sticks, and then your pandan leaf. Then what I'll do is I'll take this out and just use the water. I'll take all the solid ingredients out, just use the water to cook my grains. I will first put buckwheat, and then I'll put oat groats, and then, or sometimes I just put oat bran, okay? And for about 4 cups of water, I just follow the back, and the back says if you have 3 cups of water, you want to use 1 cup of cereal for your buckwheat. And then if you have, for the oat bran, you just basically can eat it like this, right? So I will cook this first. If I'm cooking oat groats, then I will follow the instructions on the oat groats as well. Or if I don't want the grit, or if I'm in a hurry, I don't want to wait for it to cook, I'll just add oat bran. And the reason why I'm adding oat bran is because oats have beta-glucans. I am looking for those beneficial properties, those fibers, those nutrients. Oat bran also has a little bit of protein, but mostly I'm getting it for its fiber, the beta-glucans that you don't find in many different foods, right? You're not going to find it in rice. So I will sprinkle the oat bran in after this is cooked, and then I start putting in other ingredients. So if you like raisins, add some raisins to it, to your taste. I will put in seeds, pumpkin seeds, walnuts, almonds, peanuts, whatever I have. The other thing that I'm going to put in are beans. Whenever there's an opportunity to eat beans, I will open a can of beans, I'll rinse this, or you can pre-make your beans and do it. I have to say, I'm always in a hurry, so I buy a lot of canned beans so I can rinse and then use. The reason why I rinse canned beans is because of the plastics, the BPA that lines all plastic cans, right? Whenever you eat canned food, there's going to be a lining of plastics. whenever you can, rinse it. And then I'll also add some flax seeds up towards the end. I don't want to overly cook flax seeds because the omega-3s are very sensitive. So you can buy flaxseed meal or you grind it up yourself. And I usually store my seeds and my nuts in the refrigerator. And then what I've made this whole pot, I can't eat this by myself. It's still a lot of grains, a lot of calories. And usually I pace myself. This is like my serving because I know that if I overeat grains, it's just really caloric. It still has starch in it. And if I'm not going to be exercising, whether it's grains or bread or spaghetti, if you're not exercising and keeping up with the amount of energy you're eating to get rid of it, you're going to gain weight. So I police my weight by policing my serving size. I don't eat a lot of grains in a day. Usually I will eat grains, but it's not going to be the bulk of my meal. The bulk of my meal are usually leafy greens and fruit. And then I add nutritious grains that have protein as well as phytonutrients and fiber. And that's kind of how I design my meal so that I can weight control. But so, nobody's going to cook like this, right? You can't really cook grains like that. You have to cook it in a pot. So afterwards, what I do is I just divvy it up when it's nice and cool and I put in a plastic bag. And then I put this in the refrigerator for another day so that I don't feel rushed and forced to eat all of this because it will rot like all fresh food. Once it gets wet, it's going to rot. Just that dish isn't going to get you full. So if you want more ideas of what to eat, watch the next video.